All right, this is Francisca.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is Francesca Nunez in No Longer Silence. And our topic tonight is when your abuser and your spouse gets custody of your child, which I am very, in disagreement with that. No matter, I understand that the father has rights, the mother has rights, but there should be, I always say there should be something able to be done about that, because at the end of the day, the child is emotionally damaged on both ends. Unmasking the emotional abuse in family court, your guide to protect your loved one. In a courtroom, when the domestic violence is proven and you file, a complaint and stuff, anxiety goes on an all-time high to present this case. Your heart raced, your mind is all over the place thinking, the abuse of what you're going to endure in the courtroom. Will this judge believe you? Testimonies and stuff that have to be sometimes graphic. Let it be verbal, physical, text messagings. I always say keep receipts. And never, when you go to court, fear anything. Be very positive. Be mindful on both ends. Let it be the man that gets abused or the woman. Always walk in there with your head up high and execute the reason why you're there. Because 9 out of 10, when you guys divorce, there comes the custody battle of who gets the child. Unfortunately, I have to say, what I researched, the judge has to really be mindful and look into both sides, the severity of the abuse, let it be verbal, physical, before he can decide what parent the child should go. Let it be known that the child, depending on the age, the judge asks permission on both ends to speak to the child in chamber if the child is well enough, age enough to speak. In my case, I'm going to say my grandson is 7 years old. If he was to witness anything, he's very verbal. He would be able to speak on what he saw. So I would start at that. I would start in my experience at that age and up to be allowable to ask questions of what he witnessed. That's what I would say. So yes, you can prove emotional abuse in a family court because it's all about how you present the evidence, and that's very important. Reasons to keep reading and educating yourself is knowing what to bring with you to court. I always suggest that if you have called the cops, get all the reports. They do reports apart from complaints. Gather all the reports of how many times the police came to your home. If you are the one seeking custody of your child, if you're the mom and you're seeking custody and this is what's going to happen, we hear a lot, I'm going to take the child away from you. On the father's side, you hear that a lot, I'm going to take the baby and you're never going to see him again. Always have all the complaints, all the reports on hand. Have pictures if he physically hit you. Let it be a black eye. Let it be bites. Let it be whatever he did to you, make sure you have pictures. If you went to the hospital does give you a report of the incident of what, their finding was on you physically. That's very important. I learned that with one that I'm mentoring, that a couple of months ago she landed in the hospital and I was there and I told her, make sure you get a full report of what time you went to the hospital, what's the reason you went to the hospital, have them documented that your husband or your boyfriend abused you, and the time of discharge, because it's important how many hours he or she was in the hospital, because that's evidence. I consider that your secret weapon when you go into court. Learn about, typically all the evidence, documentation, ammunition you need to fight this battle, because that's what it is. It's an emotional battle. You have witnesses that are able to give testimonies that are not afraid. That's very important. That'll give you strength in your case. That'll give you enough strength. All that I'm mentioning it's a powerful tool when you walk into the courtroom when the judge sees that you're prepared. If the other individual is not prepared, that is not your problem. Your problem is there for your safety and for your child's safety, and to ensure that you get your child. Whatever happens, visitation or whatever, I'm quite sure I've been through that. My ex-husband had to see my children, supervised because of the severity. Even though they were adults, I said if they want to see him, it has to be supervised because I don't trust him. My children are my children. I don't care how old they are. But if that individual was capable of hurting me, I don't know what he would do to my children. When I say my children, my children. How to prove emotional abuse in a family court. Very important how to, like I said, have statements, reports, complaints. If you have text messages, if you even have him calling you, threatening you, use all that in the family court, because that helps you to dispute the child custody, and that would take in consideration the judge looking further into who should have the child. That's extremely important. Even though the child, whatever age he is, he can decide what parent to live with. But like I said, there's something called that no matter what he did or she did, they have rights regardless to who the child lives with. We call that visitation.
I interrupt for a minute?
Sure you can.
Hi, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Blessed. And if you have any comment or anything you want to say, you go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I just want to say one thing before, because I got to go. I just want to say that sometimes the kids would go with the grandparents also, though. And the judge would decide if the parents ain't right for the children, then the judge probably will put them with the grandparents or the aunts or uncles to stay with them. You know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up. You have a valid point there. Thank you, Tony. You have a valid point. Sometimes when they don't want to live with the parents, it's the choice of the child to live with the grandparents, and that's absolutely, wonderful if it does happen. Grandparents play a big role in their grandchildren's lives, and you absolutely said something that is absolutely true. If whoever was the aggressor, whoever was the abuser, 9 out of 10 now the law states that if you put hands on each other, even though if you're defending yourself from the abuser, you both get arrested until it's determined who did what. The complaints that they look back, reports to see who was the abuser or the aggressor. And you're absolutely right with the grandparents. Sometimes if they can't live with one or the other, they are awarded to the grandparents, and I think that's considered like temporary custody until each or one, whoever was the abuser or the aggressor, goes into some, program which is called anger management and also counseling, and depending of how either or manages to succeed from that, the child is returned until that program is completed. I've seen it happen. Very successful program when the person really, goes, and does what they're supposed to do. But you're absolutely right. I've seen, a percentage in where some children are placed with the grandparents, and they, like I said, they play an absolutely a good role, because I'm a grandmother, and sometimes my role of grandmother converts into mother. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for, saying that tonight. Didn't come to the top of my head to mention, grandparents are awarded the children. So.
You're welcome. I got to get going. I'm sorry to, stop you from what you're talking about, but I got to get going. My friend's picking me up any minute, and I got to get outside and meet him outside.
You enjoy your evening with your friend.
Thank you. Have a good night. I'll be talking to you all.
All right, sweetheart. You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. God bless.
God bless you too. So Tony was absolutely, you're welcome. Tony was absolutely right with that statement that he said grandparents usually have the kids. And also, like I said, depending if they are put into a program, anger management, counseling, or whatever, however they do, they are entitled to visitation if they are awarded to the grandparents temporary. Usually it turns to full custody, but it depends on the outcome of the situation. Factors to consider the judge when determining the best interest of the child. The judge considers the range of factors to access the best interest of the child in custody cases. This factor may include the child's age, how I said, depending how old the child is, if he's able to speak to him of what he witnessed, and he's able to say, you know, I saw this, I saw this, I saw daddy hit mommy, or I saw mommy hit daddy, or he pulled out this and he pulled out that. These factors may include the child's age, physical and emotional health, educational needs, any history of abuse and neglect. Additionally, the judge will examine the parenting abilities and stability of each parent, their willingness to cooperate in existing relationship between the child and the parent. They do see, you know, how the child also reacts to each, you know, the mother, the father, if they're fearful, if they're afraid, just hearing their voice up in the air, they take that into consideration. You know, we have a tendency that we pass through trauma. We have, you know, anxiety triggers. You jump, you know, from hearing someone scream. I can contest to that it has happened to me. Unfortunately, I have to say it's happened to me, and it's because of all the trauma I lived. I can't hear somebody screaming. I'll tear up and remove myself from that situation. So I can imagine a child witnessing whatever altercation, the need to try to remove himself from that situation, depending how old the child is, which is very, you know, devastating. Type of evidence and documentation that can support claims of abuse in court. Like I said, it comes along with proving emotional abuse in the family court, gathering evidence that's crucial. Documentation that's email, text messages, social media posts, voicemails can serve as valuable evidence to support your claim. Additional witness statements from family members, friends, therapists, teachers who observed the effects of emotional abuse on the child is also powerful evidence. Like I said from the beginning, there's so much stuff out there, you know, that your abuser will do. You know, sometimes social media is a powerful tool. He might even, you know, I can't understand how somebody would use social media to threaten you. I would think you would lost your marbles, because we have millions and millions of people seeing that. You have people that report that. You have people that screenshot it and also, you know, moves it forward because of the severity of what they read or what they see. Sometimes they post pictures. My best friend just, you know, got beat up from the boyfriend, and I'll see that, and I said, listen, do you need any help, any assistance? I do this, I do that. Have your friend reach out to me. If I do see the post that is valid, I do message the person and say, you know, I do this and I do that. Does your friend need any help, any resources? And I do help out if I see that. If it's a false, you know, allegation up there, I just ignore it. 9 out of 10, the person will not respond, and you know it's false. The role of the witnesses and expert testimony in the domestic abuse case. Witnesses and expert testimonies can significantly impact the outcome of a domestic abuse case. Witnesses who have firsthand knowledge of the abuse behavior can provide crucial accounts, lead to credibility to the victim's claim. Expert witness such as the therapist, psychologist, can offer professional opinion in the effect of the emotional abuse that it impacts on the child. If the two individuals, well, I'm going to say like that, if the woman was the abuser or the man was the abuser, if they do get therapy supplied by the court, they are to give the reports to the judge. The judge looks over the opinion of the psychologist, psychiatrist, or the therapist, and they can determine if the child is able to be returned to both or one or the other of the parents, or if none, depending on what they each speak about or what they all. We have this word that I always say, denial. And I'm going to use that. Sometimes you have the person says, I never touched her. I just pushed her and she fell and she hit herself with the dresser, or there was something on the floor, she slipped. No, you have denial on both ends. Like, I didn't really do nothing to him, or I didn't think slapping him was going to be that hard. We hear all these stuff, and 9 out of 10, we can't believe it. A slap is a slap, a punch is a punch. Verbal words, I say, always carry a lot of weight. We have to be mindful how we speak to people. And when you do see the individual, which is the abuser, do see this type of therapy, the therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, they're no fool. Been there. They have interviewed and did various sessions with people to know when they're trying to get over on the therapist. So if they try to do that, the therapist smells it a mile away, and they do look for the well-being of the child. These three professions have a very, very strong impact in the courts, because whatever they see, they do go back to the judge. And in their reports, they will state, I think the child should not live with neither or either of the parents, depending what each individual say, because we have to look for protection of our children, of course, 100%. So does anybody have anything to say? Any opinions? Should a child be returned to an abuser? Anyone has anything to say about that? Any opinion, any testimony, if you guys ever went through something like that? Before I continue to the next topic, putting the floor for someone. We don't need to be afraid or hide. Okay, I'll continue. The most important part, procedures for obtaining a restraining order, protective order in case of domestic abuse. If you are experiencing emotional abuse, it's essential to take immediate steps to protect yourself and your child. If you are awarded the child, let it be male or female, you definitely have to look for a restraining order depending on the severity of what happened. Obtaining a restraining order or protective order. These orders can provide legal protection and prohibit the abuser from contacting or approaching you and your child. It's crucial to understand the specific procedure and requirement in obtaining this order in your jurisdiction. Sometimes the judge, when he awards the child for whatever the therapist, psychiatrist writes in their reports, if he's awarded to the mother because the mother was the one that everything was inflicted on and the dad was the one that inflicted the pain, 9 out of 10, when you put a restraining order, they are not able to see the child. That I say that's a win-win when that happens. That's an absolutely win-win. Now, obtaining a restraining order, very important if you are awarded the child. Potential impact of false allegation of abuse on the outcome of a family case. False allegation of abuse can have severe consequences on the outcome of the family law cases. It is important to note that making false claims not only to undermine the credibility of the accuser, but also hinder the court's ability to identify a genuine case of abuse. The court takes dim view of false allegation, and it is found to be intentionally misleading, can adverse the facts of the accuser's case. Let's be mindful. Also, I am absolutely very imperative in this section right here. We cannot lie if the abuse did not take place. False allegation is like perjury. If the abuser did abuse you, and you use more stuff that did not happen to you, and the judge picks up on it, 9 out of the 10, the accuser gets the child. And they will look at you as a liar, no credibility at all. We have to be mindful when we walk in there to stay with the facts of what the person did. If he hit you, state how, why it happened, what led to it. If he sent you to the hospital and he broke your leg, don't say it was both your arms, both your legs. Reports are done. It's documented. Stick with the facts. Don't invent saying anything, out of hand. Always stay with the facts. The facts will get you more successful in winning your case. We don't want misleading or intentional stuff, and where the accuser, happens to win because of your false allegation. That would be, terrible and horrifying at the same time. We have to be very careful and have a credible case of what we're going to talk about. I've seen many, many, many situations where I've seen where he slapped her, and, we got some real bad women out there, like we have real bad men out there too. And if it was something, I condone violence completely. But at the end of the day, if you had an argument, just a simple argument, I'm going to use an example. Do not say he slapped me, he hit me, he punched me to get him arrested, and he really didn't do that, and all you did was just have an argument. I've seen it happen where in the relationship we always have, if you can't be mine, you can't be that other person's. We have it in both individuals, men and women. I've seen it more in, unfortunately I have to say, I've seen it sometimes more in women, more in the teenage years, and where if I can't have you, this person can't, and it turns into an argument, and because she wants to stick it to him, she'll tell the officer, well, he hit me, he punched me, he did this to me, and I fear for my life, and all they did was argue. That's a false allegation. And on the innocent bystander, he pays the price where they're going to believe the woman because of what she said. They're not going to believe him. There was a movie I seen where this woman wanted her boyfriend so bad that she went to the extreme that if she couldn't have him, nobody can. She went into the bathroom and she literally beat herself with a sock with a soap in it. Okay? She hit herself in the eye, she hit herself in the legs, in the arms, and called the cops and said, this individual beat me up. And he did not touch her. All they did was argue. And this is a movie I watched which was based on a true story. And all I said was, oh, my God. I can't believe she inflicted that pain on her. She even broke her jaw because she hit her face with the sock with the soap in it. And you guys know soap is very hard. And she inflicted this pain because to her is, if I can't have him, no one will. And she beat herself up and she called the cops, and because the cops saw her so beat up and that she went to the hospital, they arrested him. And no matter what he said, that he didn't touch her, they only had an argument. The officer showed him pictures of, okay, then why she looks this way. And they held him in the jail, not overnight, because his friend came and said he wasn't capable of doing that. But he went and visited her at the hospital to tell her, why would you do that? All we did was argue, and I told you I didn't want to be with you anymore. There was no reason for you to do that. And she literally said, if I can't have you, no one will. And who you think they're going to believe, you or me? Of course, she has the inflicted wounds, and of course they're going to say he did it. But those are false allegations that we have to be mindful. Walk away immediately. I suggest that if you had an argument with the person and you left them on the streets, well, good, snap a picture. So they see the time frame that if the person does something crazy, cut themselves, throws themselves down the stairs, we have people that do that, unfortunately. And that is called a false allegation when you walk into court. Not something. It's very easy to fight if you have the evidence on hand. I already said it. If I'm arguing with somebody and I know I ain't put hands on you, I'm going to take a picture of you. I'm sorry. I'm definitely going to take a picture of you. I didn't do it, so sorry but not sorry. The time frame and when you take the picture, it says a lot. If the aftermath happens, if the person hurts themselves. The importance of documentation and record keeping in a family law case involving abuse, it's very, very important. It makes a strong case. Keeping records, details of, like I said, abuse incidents, including dates, time, location, descriptions of the behavior, can provide compelling evidence to support your claim. Actually, maintain their journal to record the impact of the abuse on you and your child emotionally well-being constraint in their case. I never thought of that. That is absolutely strong data that I'm reading tonight. Never thought of that, of journaling, and recording situations that happen to you. That's very, very important. Documenting everything, time, location, descriptions, dates, very, very important. Sometimes we don't think about that after the aftermath. Sometimes we don't think about that when we're going through abuse. Never in my head I wanted to document anything that happened to me. I know this now, how important it is. I always research, I always educate myself so I can help someone else. And I would never have thought in a million years to journal and record every incident. So that in itself is very, very powerful right there. Strategies in presenting your evidence at court. Like I said, be mindful, head up high, know what you're going to say, have the evidence in hand. I suggest that if you have videos, sometimes it's better to give it to whoever represents the judge so they, download it and the judge gets to see it before the court proceeding. Very, very important. Very important if you do have voice messages. Very important. I also learned that, too. You can't come with it the day of unless you have it on your phone. He's able to listen to it. But if you have stuff that's very heavy duty and you have it on a USB memory chip, it's good that when you're filing the complaint, you let them know. I have, messages, voice messages of his. Here's the USB memory card, and they do download it, and they have it ready for the judge to listen to it before your court date comes, so the judge has knowledge of what the individual says. It's also written down at word by word in a report, and where the judge will dictate what the individual says. So it's very, very important. Everything I'm saying tonight, it's very, very important to move the information to someone else. This data, I popped it up last minute yesterday, but when I was looking over it today, very, very important to pass this information along to someone else. I learned from this myself to educate my, and mentor my 5, not victims, survivors, because I don't consider them victims anymore. But it's very, very important what I'm talking about tonight. When your spouse or abuser is given custody, what to do, either or on the receiving end, who did what. Let it be the woman, let it be the man. We're not all innocent. But it's very important information and data that I am explaining tonight. And like I said, I'm learning from this information myself. I looked at this stuff and I was just like, whoa, this is very, very important. So I'm very glad that I'm able to mention it tonight, because we can help a lot of people get out of a domestic violent relationship. And sometimes when there's children involved, it's a big custody battle on both ends, fighting for the child. Now, we have consequences and penalties that happen sometimes in the. Does anybody have any questions or anybody has anything to say before I continue? Any testimony, anything that you want to refer to the topic I'm talking about tonight? Jesus, I have some shy people up in here. The potential consequences and penalty for abuse behavior in a family law case. Family courts take abuse behavior very seriously. Please be mindful. It's not a joke. Very seriously. Also when children are involved. Emotional abuse is proven. The court can impose various consequences and penalty on the abusive party. These can include restriction on custody and visitation rights, mandatory anger management, counseling programs, supervised visitation, or even loss of parental rights in extreme cases. What I finished saying from the beginning, and now is being implicated to the end of potential consequences. Depending on the severity of the case, they lose parental rights. Supervised visits are mandatory. Mandatory anger management, whichever the both sides were the aggressor or the abuser. Restriction on custody, where, no visitation rights. There's a lot of stuff that comes to, a lot of stuff that comes into play, especially when it's domestic violence. Any type, I also include child abuse. Any type of abuse, these things are implicated very severely and take it very, very seriously. I've seen judges that don't play when it comes to domestic and it comes to child abuse. They do not play. They really implicate and restrict the laws. One thing that they have now is that you are placed in an anger management program, and you are to finish that, and that report's supposed to go right to the judge. If you refuse and there's a child involved, you will not be able to see the child at all. Visitation, supervised visits, parental rights are taken away immediately depending on the severity of the case. Is it a good thing? Absolutely, because we have to follow the rules. If you stand up in front of the judge and say you're willing to help yourself get out of that situation, never do it again, don't say yes, enter the program, and just say, you know what, this is not for me, I don't care. The judge will implicate in saying, well, you didn't finish the program, that this is what's going to happen. You no longer will see your child. I will implicate a restraining order ASAP right now, and he or she doesn't have to finish the program, but there's consequences because there's stuff written down where you have to execute it, and if you don't, then whatever is implicated into the judge's order, you will not see your child. So that part is a good thing. When you don't finish something, sorry but not sorry, whatever he implicates into his ruling, you're suggested to that consequences, because in life, it's not all peaches and creams. We all have to follow the rules, and when we don't, there's consequences that follow right after. You don't want those consequences, then I would say finish the program, succeed to, overcome, that you don't hurt somebody else, and recognize that you do have a problem, and you don't fall into denial thinking you don't have a problem when you in fact do, and you will lose a lot in the process. Like I said, say male or female in the process, what you lose by trying to play split. You walk out of the program, then you will be suggested to the consequences the judge will implicate on you for the well-being of the child. The role of law enforcement and child protection services in cases of domestic abuse. Law enforcement provides child protection services, play a vital role in cases of domestic abuse. If you believe you or your child are immediately in danger, do not hesitate to contact the police. Additionally, reporting the incident of the abuse to protect the child. Services can initiate an investigation to ensure the safety and the well-being. Protecting your child is the first priority. Sometimes in relationship, we do tend to stay with our abuser because we try to think we can fix a damaged person. The person was already broken from the get-go once they put hands on you. He's not fixable. We're not here to fix anybody or repair them at all. It's very vital that sometimes when there's not grandparents involved, because we usually have deceased parents, grandparents, the child is removed and put in ACS, which is Child Protective Services Agency, until you go through the process of the programs and complete the programs, and the judge sees fits with a therapist and Child Protective Services where the child can return back to you. But once you complete it, all your ducks in a row, cross your T's, dot your I's. Like I said, I've seen 3 children removed from the home from ACS. The mother had to go through anger management, through a whole lot of process, keep the home clean, suggest herself to a lot of therapy. She had a lot of anger management. She hit the children a lot, and she had to go through the process. She turned out to be the abuser. The father just basically couldn't deal with her stuff and walked out, knowledge that the mother was very aggressive and very abusive, and she did have the children removed from the home. She was, processed through the court. She was stuck in jail for 30 days, and she entered an agreement for anger management and making sure that the kids, the house was suitable for the children. And she had intense therapy, which worked because she got her kids after 2 years. I witnessed this firsthand. I saw that. I know the children. Okay. Legal options to remedy. There's no, to the victim or domestic violence in additional to divorce. 9 out of 10, depending who was the abuser. If it's, put myself as an example. If it was me, I got divorced immediately. I didn't want to pull up with that stuff. I don't care if he wanted to go to church and speak to the preacher. I don't care if he wanted to go to marriage counseling. None of that stuff I tried, guys. None of it worked. It was a dead-end road for me. I always had the saying that a leopard doesn't change his spot. He was not going to change his spot. No matter what he did, he still continued to do the same thing. I'm sorry. I thank God I'm no longer married to the individual, because no matter what he did, never seeked any type of never seeked any counseling. And when we did, he didn't follow through. We did marriage counseling in the church. I told the priest, listen, I don't care if he stands here and says peaches and creams, apples and oranges. He did what he did, and he's not going to change. Within that time frame that we went twice to the church, that very same weekend, he came drunk, and he started the same situation all over again. And this was in the church. Counseling in the church, and he continued the same habits. So to me was enough. Enough was enough. The long-term effects of domestic abuse on victims and children. The long-term effect of domestic abuse, including emotional abuse, can be profound, lasting. Victims may experience a range of emotional, psychological, physical consequences that require ongoing support and healing. For children, witnessing or experiencing emotional abuse can lead to various development, behavior, emotional challenges that may persist in adulthood. It's sad to say, there's a saying that they say, see something, say something. If a child, and I'm going to say more a teenager, if a teenager sees the father hitting the mother, he would figure he's in the right. And that's a tolerable action. When he grows up and he gets in a relationship, he figures what his father did to his mother is something that he can do, be controlling with the girlfriend and hit her, and it's something that's permitted. Like there's something that well, my father did it, I do it. I don't see nothing wrong. He never went to jail. My mother never reported. So if he did it, I do it. 9 out of 10, the children do become abusers themselves because of what they've seen if no actions were taking place. And that right there is very sad. When you inflict, pain on another individual because your whole life you saw your dad hit your mom and no consequences were done, no police were called. Everything was like what happens in the home stays in the home. So as he grows up by seeing this abuse, he figures that when he grows up, I can do it. I'm the man. She's going to listen. She's going to do what I say. And it gets worse instead of getting better. Unfortunately, we have children that up in age that witness this, sometimes emotionally, them seeing their mom getting hit. 9 out of 10, they cling to alcohol, drugs, hanging out outside because they can't deal with the emotional pain of knowing that their mother was hurt or the father was hurt. There is development behavior problems as they start growing up. They get combative, aggressive in school. You hit me, I'll hit you. It's because what's seen in the home, it's done outside. Unfortunately, because it's a lot of physical, psychological, and emotional where they can't deal with it. If the mother doesn't pick up on it, or both parents don't pick up on it and get them the help they necessarily need with counseling, then we have a big situation on our hands when our children go up and they say, well, I seen this growing up. I don't care. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And they start progressing, having, behavioral problems. We can't question as to why, because you got to look back in their childhood. You got to look back of their living environment, of what they've seen, what they've seen their mother or their father go through. And it's very hard for a child or a teenager to handle that when back then in growing up, your parents, I can testify to that, you mention anything, they didn't want to bother talking about the situation. It was, I see no evil, hear no evil, I don't want to talk about it, just shut up and go in the room. And you, as you start growing up, if you mentally don't prepare yourself to say, okay, this is not right, whether you're not able to get help, you try to understand. As I was growing up, I tried to understand certain things that happen in my surroundings. I was mature enough to handle the situation the best way I can. Should I have counseling back then when certain things happened to me? Absolutely. How I handled it, I can say just but God. But be very mindful that sometimes incidents like this that happen in the household, our children need to see, professional help to try to avoid behavior problems, aggression, because it does come out. A child can bully them. They can feel offended and take matters into their own hands, and we don't want this. We have to learn to talk to our children when we see them angry, have them open up. If they don't feel like opening up at that moment, you just give them time, and later on say, listen, let's talk. You can tell me anything. You can talk to me as a mother. You can talk to me as a friend. However you feel to get whatever is out, but don't let it go that day. Try to emphasize, to speak to them about how they're feeling, because if we don't, then it's like a dynamite ready to explode. When they finally get it out, they hurt somebody. They'll hurt their girlfriend, they'll hurt a classmate. And also we have children that because they see in the household dad hit mom, they figure they can disrespect mom and be like, well, if she raises her voice, I'm going to smack her up. No, I don't think so. But it has happened. I've witnessed in households where the mother has told me, I don't know what to do with my daughter. She hits on me, and I'm like, what? Am I hearing this right? I wish somebody would. I don't think so. So it was a hard situation to hear from her that her daughter was putting hands on her. She had no control over her daughter. She wanted to go out and do whatever she wanted, come inside the house. If the mother said something about her, she would push her own mom. She would hit her. She would slap her and verbally abuse her. I wish that was my daughter. I'm sorry. I'm against violence, but you would not have one teeth in your mouth if you even try to put hands on. Not one teeth in your mouth if you try to put your hands on me or disrespect me. I don't think so. Crap go whip on you. I don't think so. But unfortunately, it has to be said, this generation is different. We have the new generation where they want to call their mom by their first name. I witnessed it with various friends of my daughter, and I'm like, why are you calling your mother Gloria? She's your mom. Oh, well, she lets me. I'm like, she lets you? I question the mom. I was like, listen, it's not my place, but can I ask you why your daughter's calling you Gloria? Oh, because I don't want her to call me mom. I said, I think she should call you mom out of respect, not Gloria, because Gloria is her mother, and she should call you mom. My children call me mom. My son could be 30, 40 years old, and he'll still call me mom. We'll hook up and talk on the phone. He'll call me mom. So does my daughter, and so does my oldest. I have never had them call me Francesca. You will not. I am your mother till you're 60, 70, 80. You call me Francesca, and we have a problem. I find it very disrespectful because we should set our own grounds of how our children should speak to us. I have a different name for my children. Sometimes I don't call them by their first name. I have different little nicknames for them. That's me because I'm their mother. As they grow up, that's the name I gave each and one of them, out of love and care. But as far as I'm concerned, they used to call me mom, mother, whichever the two you feel comfortable, but you don't call me by my first name. Never been disrespected by my children, thank God. I love them all three. Very respectable. Never got into altercations in school, because we always talked about it. They always did their homework. There was always communication, stuff like that. Siblings, rivalry, I tried to intervene sometimes. It was very hard. Little animosity here and there, but sometimes it happens. But I can never say they put their hands on me. Never. Never have they did, and never will, because that's an absolutely disrespect. When I see it, it disgusts me when I see it in other parents. Why did you leave so-and-so hit you? Oh, I can't control her. There's facilities. There's boot camps. There's residential areas. Have them in there, and I bet you they'll straighten up. But you are their mother. And if that's the example you're setting now where your child hits you, imagine when they grow up and get in a relationship and they get married. It might be the other way around. And that's what we're allowing, and we can't allow, because there should be a level of disrespect. Not only a mother and father, grandparents too, all down the line. You will respect every family member. So I just had to put that out there. I had to put that one out there because I witnessed something, when my daughter was growing up. I'm not going to mention she got a good head on her shoulder, the young lady now, because I told the mother, let me straighten her out. She hangs with my daughter, and they used to come home together in my house, and I used to be like, let me handle your daughter. And I used to tell her, I don't want you cursing at your mom, because if you curse at your mom, you will never come here and hang in my house with my daughter. I don't want that kind of language around my daughter. You won't implicate it. I'm not going to accept it. And from now on, while you come into my home, hanging out with my daughter and stuff, you will address your mom. I ever hear you cursing at her or calling her Gloria, Mary, we're going to have a problem. And I thank God because I intervened. This young lady bloomed into a teacher assistant for special needs, has 2 special needs children of autism of her own. I love her a lot, but it took a lot hands-on helping her mom. And her mom appreciated the fact that I intervened, and I said, let me handle her, because she will not talk to you like that. And I loved her. I still love her like a daughter. My daughter and her stay in touch all the time. They both look like twins. And I handled that situation because I didn't like it. Anybody that's going to be around my children, you will respect. What you do will implicate and impact on my children. So what I don't want for my children, I wouldn't want for you. So I thank God that I was able to help out in that situation. I was one of those little budding moms. But if you're coming to my house, I'm sorry. There's a level of respect that I want for your mom when you're coming to my house. And she changed that script real quick. It turned to Mom, not Gloria. It turned to not disrespecting her. It turned to when she says, I want you home in a certain time, I would tell her if she even falls through the cracks, you bring her to my house and I'll speak to her. I always say it takes a village. If there was that confidence, that nice friendliness that we had. If I was another one, I would have said, I don't care. She's not my daughter. I don't care. But I do care who's around my children. And if you're coming to my house, you will respect.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask any question you want. You guys have the floor now.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I just want to ask you, do you think if the parent beats the child in the house, then that child will go out to their friends and their school, and he can be violent, or she can be violent to her siblings? I mean, not siblings, her friends or her schoolmates or so forth. Does that lead to getting hit? Lead to that?
Okay, so your question was, say that the child is being abused in the house?
Yeah, beaten physically.
Okay.
And will that lead the kid to doing it to other kids?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because I spoke that in the beginning. So if they're getting abused in their home and it's not being addressed or being said to anyone, the child has a tendency of holding that anger because whatever the mom, they say, she was beating him with a belt or her with a belt. Those letter belts back in the days, they were harsh, they marked. Say that it was several lashings and the child had a take that in. That brings a lot of anger inside the child where she feels the need or he feels the need that he can't speak about what's going on at home. Yes, he can be the aggressor at a school where he feels like they're doing it to me at home. I'm not saying nothing. I can't say nothing. So that builds up inside of them. And it builds a lot of anger, and they feel that what's happening to them at home, they need to release it on someone else. So, yes, it brings a lot of aggression and a lot of anger inside of them. So they release it on another innocent bystander, which is very dangerous because sometimes it's not hands, sometimes it's weapons. So it's very dangerous when the child or the teenager doesn't speak about the abuse and they hold it in. It's like a time bomb ready to explode. And like I said, we all been there. We work in different places and stuff, and your boss will get you angry and you hold that in, and sometimes somebody will come up to you and say something nice and you'll be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Because you had that bad day because of the way your boss spoke to you. You couldn't address it. You held it in, but then you lashed it out on an innocent bystander. So, yes, the child can be an aggressor because of the pain he's inflicting in the home because he's not saying what's happening to him. So, yes, he can be, that's behavioral problems waiting to happen, and he's holding that aggression and that anger from that beating in. Because I always say, you can beat a child to a certain extent. There's a time that the child gets immune to the beating to the point that they take it, and then when they come out, they beat somebody just the way they got beaten, and it's not right. It's not right and it's not fair. Yeah, it's not right and it's not fair. So yes, Dr. James, they do become aggressive because they hold what they're going through in their homes inside. Anything else?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm good. Hey, how you doing?
Good. I was listening to you. Many times what happens is how your house is structured, that's what you are outside. If you have a well-structured house, then you have a well-structured kid. If the house is not structured, then that's why we have the issues we have. And that's why the kid is violent. Because he also does that for attention. Because he doesn't get the attention he deserves at home.
Absolutely.
That's why we have many issues inside schools where the kids fight. Because mom works 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and they're home alone. They don't have nobody. They have something to do in school. No parent shows up. But my friend parent went. Why doesn't my mother come? Why doesn't my father come? Where's my support? I don't have a circle. There's nobody there for me. So I think your house structure is central of how everything goes on inside the house. That's like the main purpose. If that's okay, then everything else is okay.
I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you brought David that point up too. It's very important because sometimes the child feels like left out, like he's not important, and it's true, and it lashes out like, a lot of anger and emotion inside of him when they see stuff like that. They feel like they're not important in their family's life. So that's some type, of abuse, which is neglect. I call that neglect. So that does bring, a lot of anger, a lot of tendency too, and where they see that other children, their parents come in, and we have children that be like, oh, my mom came in, she loved me, she saw my grades and stuff like that. Where were your parents? So that builds like animosity and anger, and then he'll seek out the kid that's always bothering him about that and fight him. So those altercations usually happen. It's funny, but I want to laugh too. It's funny, but it's not funny. But usually that's what happened. You have children that pick on you, parents' night, they look at the door to see if you're coming in to see how their grades was, and they get upset, and it builds up on them. And then you have, like you said, David, they work 2 jobs. They'll question the mom the next day like this, and it was parents' night, you never came in. If she's tired, she lashes out, I didn't have time, don't come with me with this BS. And, the child gets angrier. The child feels like
the kid has sports, has a soccer game, whatever. Everybody's kid comes to the game and mom never shows up. The coach doesn't even know who the parent is. Sad to say, but sometimes it's the truth. They don't even know who the parent is.
Absolutely. A lot of life-changing stuff. Stuff, we don't believe it, but it's what may be small to us is big to children. I'll give an example. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Yesterday, I was on the phone with an important phone call of someone that needed to speak to me at that time, and I could not hang up. I did not realize that my grandson was calling me on another, a WhatsApp app, which I can't see when I'm talking to the person. I immediately, rectified that situation, hung up, and I always look at my messages if someone, needs to speak to me or they send me something. I happened to look at my WhatsApp and saw 3 video calls. 3 video calls missed. It was my grandson. I called back. He was very upset. And my daughter was like, listen, Isaiah is very upset. And I said, why? He was like, he's calling you 3 times. You never picked up. I said, Ma, I was on an important phone call. There was a situation that, it was out of my hands and I needed to address it. And it took longer than I thought, but did not know he called me. When I FaceTimed him, he didn't want to look at me. I said, sweetheart, why don't you want to look at me? He was like, I called you 3 times. I'm very upset at you because you didn't pick up the call. I felt very emotional because I don't like ignoring his calls, but there's stuff that happens. There's stuff that happens out of my hands, and I had to put myself in his position and talk to him and be like, hey, sweetheart, look at Grandma in the FaceTime. Come on, Grandma didn't mean to not pick up the call. Can I just explain that I was talking to somebody? not more important than you, but it was a situation. You know the stuff I do, and it took longer than I thought, and I did not know you called me. Your phone call is very important to me, sweetheart, so please don't get mad. Look at Grandma at the camera. So he looked, and he was like, Grandma, but I felt so bad because you always pick up the phone. I said, baby, sometimes situations are going to happen where I can't pick it up, but it's not that I don't love you and I'm ignoring you. Never think that. I don't ever want you to think I'm ignoring you and that I don't want to pick up your phone call. But just because I didn't pick it up yesterday and I called him back, he did not want to speak to me or even look at me at the FaceTime. He had it up to the wall. And I was like, Isaiah, take it off the wall and look at Grandma. I don't want to speak to you right now. He was like, I'm not going to hang up, but I don't want to speak to you. I'm angry. He's 7 years old, and in fact, upset him. But it wasn't something that I did purposely. It was something that I couldn't control. There was someone that needed me at that time, and I never saw his missed calls. So that in itself, because I didn't pick up, it made him feel bad. He really got emotional and started crying. So simple things. So imagine a simple thing like that because I didn't pick up and it wasn't my fault. Something so little like that upset him and made him cry. So imagine if he was to witness something real big in the household, a fight, an argument, his mom getting hit, how he would emotionally feel. If I already told you guys how he felt about a missed phone call. Do the mathematics there. Try to compare that situation. He thought I was ignoring him, and I didn't want to pick up his call. Now, if he was supposed to, if he was... Go ahead, David.
That shows you how much maturity he has. He's only 7. You're not doing anything that big. Or for him, you were doing something super big. Imagine, let's make this scenery. He's 13, and you don't pick up that phone call. He's not going to look at that FaceTime camera who knows when. And if you don't make that contact, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. You see the difference. I'm glad you brought that scenario up. We're talking a 7-year-old, look what he did. And you just said, what if he would have been 13? He never would have picked up the phone, never would have called me. He would have made whatever stuff in his mind. You know, whatever he embeds in that, the mind is a tricky thing to undermine. Something so simple. And I turned it around, but that was just a phone call. But as I'm speaking to you guys now, what if he was supposed to witness something bigger than that? An altercation that he can't control is out of his hands, and he builds up an anger management inside of him because he can't do nothing about that situation. He can't understand why their parents are fighting, why this one slapped that one, why this one punched. If he was to witness something like that, how would he feel? Doing a comparison with the phone call or me not picking up, doing a comparison to that if he was supposed to witness something devastating that way, he won't be able to, aggression, behavioral problems will start mixing in. I saw all that because of a phone call, and he got mad. And I was like, don't get mad, sweetheart. I was occupied on something. It was important, but you're important. But I saw the anger because he put the phone to the wall. And I was like, wow, he got upset because he thinks I didn't want to pick up his call. Now, I think about this topic tonight, and I say, what if he was supposed to witness domestic violence? What if he was to witness firsthand child abuse? What would be his reaction? That's like a little ticking bomb waiting to explode. And he's only 7. So David just said, what if he would have been 13? Never would have picked up my phone calls or nothing. So our children are very impressionable. And like I said in the topic tonight, there's a lot of emotion that comes with stuff that happens devastating, like David said, in a household. If the parents are working and the child feels neglected and they're not, have attention set on them, quality time set on them, they build that up inside, and sometimes they take it out on other people, other bystanders that have nothing to do with what they're feeling because they don't get the necessary help that they need and the understanding as to why they're being treated the way they are. So, yes, Dr. James, I call that neglect, and yes, I call it aggression when the child doesn't speak up and say what's wrong with them. They come out, and I say they hurt an innocent bystander, and it's something that happens periodically all the time if it's not addressed and it's not handled. Unfortunately, if the child continues to do aggression behavior, I don't care if you work 2 jobs or you work 1 job, the school will call you in and the problem will be addressed. And if you don't come into the school, then you wonder why your child's home, suspended.
Well, you know, when we were kids, when I was a child, we had one family on our block that the father would beat the whole house, including the mother.
Oh, God.
He beat everybody. He beat everybody in the house. And he was very, 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 we called him mean or strict. Like if he sent his son to the bodega to get a loaf of bread, he would time him.
Wow.
And if he didn't get back in a certain amount of time, he would get a beating. You know? So,
just for that?
That was abuse. But back then, nobody said nothing. We used to listen in the window. The kids, me and my friends, we knew that because he had 4 kids, so we knew they were all our friends. And we would go to the window and listen in the window while they were getting the beating. And everybody was scared of him, the father. And then he would beat the mother too.
And nothing, everybody. No one spoke up, and that abuse continued, and he was never.
We were little kids, and we kept saying we're gonna call the cops, but we never did. But so that was one example. Well, my question for you is, with women, some religions believe that a woman should not beat the boys. Now, do you believe that that's not true, that the mother can beat the boys?
I don't think that's true, because you know what? The day and age we live in now, we have single moms and we have single fathers, and you have to be, you have to be the firm authority in your household. I do believe in discipline to a certain extent. I do believe in discipline, but it depends on the discipline. And discipline, I'm going to say, is that you take something from the child that they like. That's the type of punishment that should be given. I do not like the force. Sometimes people say, well, you do that. If you give the hard punishment, I see it as a little harsh, because, like I said, the child builds up the aggression. They take the beatings. There was a child, Dr. James, I'm going to give you a testimony. There was a child that grew up being beaten by the mom and the dad, no matter what he did in school, or like you just said, if he was sent to go somewhere and he came late, they were like, oh, well, you came late. That should have took like 5 or 10 minutes. I timed you. Or in school, if they got a phone call that the child was misbehaving, that got beaten. The child got immune to the beating to the point that he used to tell, and this testimony was told to me, the child as a teenager. He says, I got the beating so bad that when they used to hit me, I got immune to the beating. He could have hit me so hard that it got to the point I never cried no more. Like, I got used to, if it was a slipper, if it was a belt, if it was a switch, a cable wire, he got to the point that he got immune to it. That he said he could have hit me as hard as he wanted, it didn't hurt anymore, because he said, I got beaten so much that I no longer cried, I held it in. To this day, I have to say the child is no longer a child. All he known in his life was abuse in the household, verbal and physical, and now he's streets. He's streets, and he's a tough guy where, no one can say nothing to him. He popped somebody in the mouth, who you talking to? So he's like a roughneck kid now from the streets because the validation he didn't feel at home, he thought he can get it in the streets with his boys now. So this is what we're looking at when the child gets immune to the beating to the point that they tell you, well, he used to hit me. He thought I was going to cry. I took it. It ain't hurt no more because he did it so much, it don't hurt. My mom used to slap me. Now she does it. I just look at her and that's it. So sometimes when you're beating them to a certain extent, they get immune to it. They hold it in. The aggression is built inside of them, which is very scary because we have kids that kill their parents. I hate this or I hate you. I wish you was dead. And down the road, they execute that. And that's scary when that happens. But sometimes, like I said, in the household, you see so much type of abuse. It's never said. It's never spoken. And in this day and age, they take it, and then they hit the streets. They leave the home from the abuse, and they think the streets is better. Can I blame them? No, because they didn't get the necessary help. Like David has said, the structure starts from home. If the structure is not, the foundation at home is not strong and the communication is not strong, and they result to like, oh, I'm getting tired of your stuff, I'm getting tired of your school calling, you're doing this, you're a bad kid, you're a bad girl. They grow up with the word bad, 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 and they think they're bad. They think they're nothing, like they're worthless. So we lose them to the streets, to people that will show them love. We lose them to gang where they say this is your family, and that's something we can't allow to happen. But unfortunately, it does happen because the lack of what they received at home, they receive it from the streets.
Well, the oldest daughter, she became a prostitute, and
wow.
well, I think he put her out the house when she was 16, and she was a prostitute. I don't know what she's doing now, if she's still alive. I think she is.
That's absolutely, not to cut you off, that's absolutely sad because question yourself, she's 16, she's not in school, she's, pimping herself out there for money. Ask yourself what kind of life.
She got with a guy, and he must have been the pimp or something. There's an older man. Like, she was like 16. We see her. She's still in the neighborhood, but she was staying with this guy that was like, maybe 40.
Wow.
Or 30-something. So he must have been pimping her or something. I don't know. But that guy beat the mess out of them kids. And I think that when you beat the boys like that, and I'm going to use this term, this is not a sophisticated term, but you punk them. Like, you can make them turn into, like, quote unquote, a sissy.
Yeah, you're absolutely
right. You don't believe that, right? I think you can.
No, yes. Like I said, Dr. James, no judgmental. Everything you're saying is on point. Sometimes when they're beaten from the father, they build a system in where they get scared. And they go out to the world where somebody will down talk them and hit them, and they see it as something as normal. And it's not normal. It's actually a very scary thing because the parents are like the head of the household. These are your parents that's supposed to protect you, not hurt you. So if you see in another household that they're being treated with a lot of love, a lot of respect, and not getting beaten, the kids see and analyze that and say, okay, Mary's house, she doesn't get hit. Her mother talks to her. Her mother comes to the school. My dad beats the Pope out of me, and now he twitches. He even lowers his head thinking somebody's going to, like, hit him. So he grows with that trauma thinking that in the world when he comes out into the world, he'll think that he's going to be hurt. So yeah, he'll feel like a punk because a bigger person can come and say, hey, you, boom, and hit him. He won't be able to defend himself because, like I said, the beating's gotten so bad, and especially from the individual who's inflicting it. And at the end of the day, they get immune, but at the same time, They're fearful of somebody hurting them. So of course, they'll get that way, and it's not it's a normal reaction because, like I said, the person who's inflicting the pain is supposed to be protecting him, not hurting him. So when, let's say, a scenario of what you just said, the kid is 16 years old, he goes to high school, he gets beaten by his dad. He goes to high school, he gets beaten by 2 or 3. Does he hit the other individuals? No. Because when he gets at home, he figures he deserves what he gets at the school, and he doesn't fight and defend himself. So it does happen, and then it turns to, you're a punk at home, but you're also a punk in school, because they'll come and say, oh, you didn't fight back, you're a punk, and he is bullied and beaten every day. So what are the consequences?
Not only the fathers, the mothers,
yes,
can beat you like that too. And I noticed that, like you said, there's a lot of single parent families, and most of the time those are the mothers raising the kids. And I've noticed multiple kids that their mother would beat the mess out the boys. That's why I was asking about women hitting boys.
No,
because
absolutely.
They do it too. It make them boys punks and sissies, like because they beat them so much. And that also might make a boy hate women.
No, exactly.
So much.
Hold on, Dr. James.
Good evening, Francesca.
Good evening.
Piggyback off of what Dr. James is saying. How long that child's going to take that abuse, even if someone is picking on him at school? If it is a high school student, it's going to come to a point that so much what's been going on in his life, getting beaten at home, and then coming to school, getting beaten, he's going to turn into a monster, and that can be very dangerous.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you're right.
All
that's
that
what
build up anger, that can be very dangerous.
Absolutely, and I'm in agreement with you, because I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if this was a year ago, 2 years ago, there was, I'm going to have to say it up here, he was white. He was being bullied at the school. He was saying at home what was going on. And what did this teenager do? He went into the school with a gun. Mm-hmm. And he went into the school, and he shot up in the school where teachers and students were hurt, because he wasn't able to deal with the bullying and the beatings no more. And he was mentioning it at home, and he wasn't listened to. So what he did, he took matters into his own hands, got up one day and said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And he walked into the school, people that didn't have nothing to do with the situation. He didn't shoot the ones that bullied him. He randomly came in the school and shot, various teachers, various students. Didn't shoot himself. They managed to grab him. And what they said the next day on the news, he had mental health issues from the trauma from the beatings. Mm-hmm. Mm. That's the end results when a child holds in, like you just finished saying, how much beating can he take at home in the school? When he doesn't have an outlet of what he's going to do, he's going to look for something to do himself. Look, Timothy McVeigh, oh God, I even hate mentioning, sorry but not sorry. What did he do? He built up a lot of anger inside of him. He was abused, physically and verbally. What did he decide to do, Timothy McVeigh? He went into, I think it was a daycare school. He blew it up. He went
to the federal. He went to the federal building in Oklahoma. I think it was the post office, something like that, and he put a bomb in there. Exactly.
And how many people did he kill? A lot.
I don't know, but it was a whole lot. He died. He died.
Yeah.
They executed him.
Yeah. Well, I'm against of all that stuff, but well deserved, because they know he planned this. He planned exactly to do what he was going to do. He executed. He made the bombs at home. He wrote down what he said he was going to do. He sat in the truck and was going to execute that, and he did that. And now we have a bunch of children that are no longer here because that's how he got his anger out. He was so frustrated and he was so mad at the world of everything that was going through with him, he decided to execute and kill other individuals that had nothing to do with what he was going through. And everything was found in the household. The mom was asked, did you know he was making bombs in the room? Did you know he had this written down over and over? I'm going to do this at this time, and I'm going to blow this up, and this is what I want to do, and I feel good. He wrote all that down. Now, speak to the millions and millions of parents that lost their children that day because of this one individual's action. Imagine the anger he had inside of him every single day trying to execute this. And when he finally did it, there was no remorse. There was not, I'm sorry. His face was blank. Like, I did it, okay, and that's it. I don't care. And that's stuff that we have to learn to avoid because we have a lot of gun violence today. Nobody throw hands up no more. When there's anger built in, like I said, they do come in with guns. They do come in with knives, and they don't care because they are that angry of whatever living situation, whatever that's going inside of them, they inflict it on somebody else. And firsthand, I've seen so many news of shootings in the schools, daycares, and stuff because they don't have an outlet to get this anger out. They can't say, this is what's happening to me at home. I'm getting abused. I'm getting beaten. I'm not being listened to. So you build all that up, and you're like a time bomb. And what do? You take it out on other bystanders. You either go to jail, you get the electric chair, you get the legal injection, or life imprisonment because of your actions.
Well, it might be psychological, too, because, well, psychiatric problem. Because I know a woman, she had a son, and she used to beat him so much that when that man became an adult, he was so feminine. He acted very, very, very feminine. And he was very, like, scared and nervous of everybody.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, there's another testimony that you mentioned that now. Another testimony, something I witnessed. There was a woman, a movie, I forgot the name of it. Her son died in a drowning. She wanted her son back so bad. She adopted a girl. The girl, she dressed her up like her son, the boy. She put her through school, through camp, and everybody thought she was a boy. She was not a boy. She fell in love with a kid. They were about to do that act. The kid saw that she was a boy. And all this time they thought, they called her Angela, all this time they thought she was a boy when in fact she was a girl. The mother tormented her. Remember, when you go to school, your name is this and this. Dressed up the boy like a girl, hair and everything. When I saw the movie, I swore she was a girl. At the end, when she fell in love in camp with someone, and that was going to happen, the boy fell in love with her, realized that she was not a girl, she was a boy. In the aftermath of the movie, psychologically, she flipped because the one person she was falling in love with that thought she was a girl and in reality she was a boy, she flipped and she started killing everybody. She killed the boy and she started killing everybody else because in her head she saw images of everybody saying, you're not a girl, you're a boy, and she killed everybody in the camp, including the boy.
Wow. What's the name of this movie, Francesca?
I think it was Sleepaway Camp. I think it was look at it up in YouTube, Sleepaway Camp. Her son died in an accident in the water. And when she was told, she adopted a girl and raised her up like a boy. And she could never say anything, acknowledging the fact that she knew she was a boy. She was dressing her up in girls' clothes, let her hair grow out so she can be, cut her hair short so she can look like a boy. And then she sent her in the summer camp, and she would always tell her, remember what I told you, you're not a girl, you're a boy. And like I said, throughout the movie, she fell in love with a kid. The kid fell in love with her, and one day the kid invited her like by the lake and told her to see each other. I like you. And he kissed her and everything because he thought she was a girl. So when that was going to happen, he realized she was, she wasn't, or how was it? Her son died. So she wasn't a girl. She was a boy. So when he saw that, he was like, you are not a girl. You're a boy. You have. So she got scared and wanted to keep the secret. She killed him, and she went a little psych. And throughout the movie, she started seeing images of everybody laughing, and she thought they knew, not knowing that they didn't know because they were together at the beach. He was the only one that found out, but she went a little, psycho in the head and started killing everybody at the camp because she saw images of them laughing, saying, you're not a girl, you're a boy. And in reality, this is something she invented in her head, but this is what she thought she saw, and she killed everybody. But her mother raised her to be a boy when, in fact, she was a girl. And that was a very sad movie to see because innocent people died because after she offed them, she went a little crazy and she kept seeing everybody at the camp laughing. And, she thought they were picking at her, but she lost her mind when she killed the boy because that was the only person she fell in love with. They were talking, having fun. And when he realized what she really was and wasn't, she killed him. And then the next morning she kept seeing, like when she went to have breakfast, she saw the girls or the boys. She thought they were picking at her, but she lost her mind after she killed the boy, and she started killing each and one of them. But this is what her mother did to her, dressed her up like a boy. When in reality, you lost your child, to an accident in the water. Why would you adopt, a girl and turn her, try to transform her into a boy when she's not? And this is why I said an example of the aggression she built up inside of her, not being able to talk, not even to say, my mom is dressing me, my foster mom is dressing me like this because she can't cope that, her son died and she's dressing me up like that. She traumatized her too, because throughout the years going to school and stuff and then summer camp, she knew the fact that she was a girl, but her foster mom was dressing her up like a boy.
So the mom was mentally ill too?
Yes. She couldn't deal with the loss. So what does she do down the road? She adopts a little girl and dresses her up like a boy.
Well, this is a movie. It's not real life, right?
It happened in real life.
Yes.
But I would blame the foster care agency because they're supposed to send people to the house to see what's going on in the house.
Absolutely.
And, they should know if the kid is a boy or a girl.
No, absolutely. I would say that, there should have been a follow-up at the home so they can see, because she wouldn't be dressing her back like a girl after, because she was mentally unstable when her son died. But I say that they should have done a follow-up at the home to see how she was doing with the foster mom, and it never happened. No one said anything. I'm assuming that this little girl walks into her house and everybody knows she's a girl, but then one day walks out of the house and she's a boy. Someone should question, someone would question something like that. If I'm in a tight neighborhood and I adopt a little girl and one day you see a little boy walking out, you're going to question, like, hold on, does she have two children or does she have one? That's first of all, you're going to question.
The neighborhood people would see that too.
Absolutely. Because they all knew that her son died. So for an example, say if they saw that she adopted a little girl and then sees her walking out, and it's a little boy, they would have to question, like, hold on, does she have 2 kids in the household? Because I remember her son died. How come there's a little girl that walked in and now there's a boy? So there's a lot of factors into the movies of the lack of follow-up that was done. You know, first of all, from the agency that she adopted her to. Second of all, she went through grammar school, high school, and, you know, let's think, we're going to do sports. How did this, you know, little girl, or I'm going to say little girl that was, you know, transforming into a boy, how would she be changing, you know, in a boy's locker room and not see that she was a girl? So there's a lot of stuff from the movie that if you get to see it, you get to learn and analyze stuff like where did she go to change to play a boy's sport, so they wouldn't see that she has, you know, her parts were different. She didn't have surgery or nothing.
Mhm.
You know, so those are stuff that it was a very powerful movie to watch, because I thought at the end of the day she was a boy. When I saw the ending, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. She looked like a boy, but she's really in reality a girl. And I was watching the whole thing from because the way they portray the movie, they show the part where her son dies, and then you see another boy in the house, but you can kind of see the features that she looks like a girl. And that's what stayed in my head, like, the boy kind of has like feminine features to the face and stuff. And when I saw the hair, so at the finale is when I finally realized that. I said, oh my gosh, she was bringing her up as a boy when in reality she was a girl. Then you saw the backtrack where she was saying, I don't want you to tell nobody that you're a girl, you're a boy, you stay with these boy clothes, you keep your mouth shut and don't say nothing. And then you would see clips that whenever she went into the bathroom, you wouldn't see her changing. You would see her come out and she would have like the boys' clothes and would play the sport and stuff, go swimming, but you never saw her changing. You know, sometimes they show a little bit of nudity.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see this in this movie. Every time they switched it, where she was coming out dressed in boy clothes. So the movie made you think that in reality she was a boy till the very end. You saw that she was a girl. So she was traumatized. The foster mother was no help because she couldn't deal with the fact that her son died, and she tried to replace him. But she replaced him in an awful way, inflicting, you know, mental situation on this girl. So you can imagine, you can just imagine. I'm not going to say it's a good movie to watch, but it's a good movie that you can backtrack and see that you learn a lot from the movie. How the world shouldn't be, and how you got to try to cope with a traumatic situation and not replace, your child. And I've seen lots of movies where it's like that, and I'd be like, wow, it's sad. It's very traumatizing. And at the end, like I said, she offed everybody because in her head, her images were like they were laughing at her. In reality, they weren't. She just made it up in her head, and she killed everybody. Yeah, so very, very, very powerful movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think that when you beat your kids like crazy, well, not even like crazy, but just beat them a lot, that could cause a kid to go out there and start committing crime and beating up people in the street and all kinds of things like that because they're used to violence.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Because as like I said from the beginning, all the data that I have read, they build up that aggression inside, and they don't get the help they need. They don't see they need help. They just have that anger where they don't know where to, address it or what to do. And if you don't have that foundation in the home where you're having constantly that they're beating you and screaming at you and you're the bad person, I've heard moms, and I'm going to say it real briefly. I heard moms say, you're not a good kid. You're not a good kid. You're always getting in trouble. Let's reverse that and see why he got in trouble in school. Go to the school and find out why he got in trouble. Explain to him later on what he did and what it could be different. Instead of just saying, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Because if you hear that all the time from your father figure or your mother figure, which are the person that protects you and supposed to love you, if you're hearing constantly negative thoughts that you're the bad, they're going to think they're bad. And it's going to anger them most because it's coming from the home. So that builds up in anger, and then when they go out, the first person they come across that they say something wrong to that person, they're going to hit them. So, of course, they're going to have aggression, and they're being beaten. I said it here quite a few times. They get immune to the beating. I had this child tell me he beat me so bad that now when he hit me with the belt, I didn't feel it. I didn't cry. I don't care if I got in trouble and he hit me. I never cried. And the more he didn't cry, the more the father beat him because he wanted to make him cry, and he didn't. The mother slapped him. He got immune to the slap. And what did he do? Go out there to the world, lived on the streets, and he looked for validation in gangs and people in the streets where he thought he was loved, and that's not love. But he wasn't getting it at home. So he figured, I'm not getting it at home, but these are the people that love me. Really, in reality, they don't love you because they're going to bring you down to get you in trouble. Gangs, you know what they're affiliated with, what they do. So that's like more trouble. But that's where he found his validation and love, not at home. So unfortunately, like I said, sometimes all this stuff, we lose our children to the streets because they don't know who to go to, who to speak to, and get that anger out. So that's why we have, and I'm not going to say that's why we have gun violence, but look at their history. Look at what happened to them in the past to get them to the point that they are now. And that's how I've seen it. You beat me. I could have been, like I said, I could have been an abuser. The therapist said it. I could have been an abuser. I could have been an alcoholic. I could have been a drug addict. With everything I went through, traumatizing, and I was none of the above. But there's so many women out there that are not lucky. I ran into a lot of women that they tell me, my husband beat me to the pulp, I couldn't deal with the pain. I turned to drugs to numb the pain. I turned to alcohol to forget. I thank God that I had that will and that faith that I did not become one of those women, which I pray for so dearly, because I looked at them, that could have been me. It could have been me, and I thank God it wasn't me, because I had that strength to move forward and look for validation in me and say, okay, this is not going to kill me. I'm going to move forward. And just like I said, within that 1 month in advance, I was able to speak of what happened to me because I was ashamed. I thought I did something wrong. And in reality, I got to cope with the fact that he was the problem, I wasn't the problem.
What's the most bad is that when your parents tell you that you're not a good child, whatever, when you go to school and a teacher tells you that. And
no,
you know
absolutely.
What? When I was in high school, I had a history teacher, and I used to get 90s on every one of her tests. She didn't like me for some reason. And she gave me a 75 on the report card. I had like a 90 average. So my mother and them, they weren't active in school. They didn't come up there or nothing like I would have did, but they didn't. But anyway, she went around the class and asked everybody, what do you want to be when you finish school, when you grow up or whatever? So I told her something like a lawyer or something. She said, I heard her mumble to the other kids, you're not going to be nothing. Yeah, that's what she told me.
Wow.
She said it, she mumbled it, that you're not going to be nothing.
How did you feel?
I'm strong because I was trained. My mother and grandparents and so forth, my father, they taught me to be strong. I used to go to church all the time, and our pastor taught us to be strong. And see, I was bused out. I was bused from the black neighborhood. I went to the school in Bensonhurst, which was mainly Italian and Jewish neighborhood, and there was only a few blacks in the class.
Okay.
And I didn't like, I guess the teacher didn't like me. Now, you know, my mother, she should have said something when she gave me that 75 when I had a 90 average. But she didn't even, my mother had to work. She didn't even go up to the school say nothing. You know, back in those days, they didn't do nothing. So I had to pretty much fight my way there. So I just ignored her. But I still remember it to this day, what she said.
And I always, and I always say words carry. I always say words carry a lot of weight. Well, unfortunately, I have to log off because I have to let my other colleague come in. I want to thank everybody for your dialogue, your testimony, or your questions. It was a good topic tonight. Some that I really don't like speaking about because it hits home with me when I have to talk about these situations. But I thank everybody. But if you guys are not doing nothing, and you can support John Monroe on Envision Care at 8 o'clock, I would appreciate it. And I'll see you guys all next week on another topic. I'll surprise you on another topic next week, all right? So you guys have a very good night, my kings and queens. I love you and have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend, and stay safe.
You as well.